Okay, so welcome everyone to our April 14th, 2026 Libswork meeting. My name is Andrea Lewandowski. I'm with the New Jersey State Library. And this month we are joined by Taylor Nickel, who is going to talk about the silver tsunami, how we should be looking at entrepreneurship and being focused on employee-owned businesses as part of our, having that idea and that concept on our radar. So we'll be learning more about that. Um, so usually we open up our meetings with some introductions, and I think we've got a big enough group that we should be doing that through chat. So if you don't mind putting in your name, where you're from, and also if you have any either burning questions that you want to make sure that we have an opportunity to address today, something that you really would like to get other people's opinions on, you can go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Make sure that you also have your state in there. Taylor seems fairly familiar with what's going on in other places, so that would be a good opportunity to maybe get some local information through this presentation as well. And I'll mention this again at the end of the meeting, but looking ahead, our next meeting will be on May 19th, and Amanda Sweet will be joining us again. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to log in when she was originally scheduled. So she's going to be coming back and she's going to be talking about training for job seekers and specifically technology training. So I'll include the link to the registration for that in the chat. And more information will be going out in the follow-up for today. Taylor is also sharing her slides, so I will be able to include them in the follow-up email. And I think that's about it for my opening. So all of that said, my rambling done, I'll turn it over to Taylor. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and there will be plenty of time for discussion today. So Taylor, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Andrea. So first and foremost, I'm in a public place, so my Wi-Fi hopefully, won't go out, but please, we have an intimate group. So if I need to repeat something or if there's a lag, just flag me because I know that once I share my screen, I won't be able to see y'all. I have a presentation. You can interject in between or we can save time. So if there's something burning, feel free. Again, it's a small enough group, happy to stay flexible. But really, my goal today is to give you an overview of employee ownership, maybe give you some ideas for how you can interact with your businesses or in your local businesses through your roles and positions, and really advocate or spread awareness of employee ownership, and then happy to answer questions of others. So I am the executive director of the Texas Center for Employee Ownership. We are a nonprofit. Our whole goal is to spread awareness of employee ownership, ultimately to preserve our local businesses and the good jobs in our communities. We know employee ownership keeps doors open, but also is an incredible wealth building opportunity for our workers, and really keeps legacies alive. I know for so many of your states, but I'll speak for Texas, small business entrepreneurship is just the lifeblood. It's the fabric of our economy. And so really employee ownership serves as an awesome opportunity to keep that legacy alive and keep the jobs in the community. We know that when businesses sell to an outside party, they're more likely to move the jobs out of the community. So lots of different wins for employee ownership, and I'll go over those. We are part of a national network, the Employee Ownership Expansion Network, and I'll show you that as well. But just to get you thinking that in almost every one of your states, we do have a state center. And if we don't in your state, it still means we can help you. And so I hope to be able to spark ideas for each of you, and at the very least, get you, a connection to someone in your state if that's something you're looking for. Okay, so I will share. Okay. I think it's going. Okay, are we good? Oh, I can see somebody else. So, okay, great. Okay, so let's get over here. Okay, so Adrian already mentioned the silver tsunami. This half of our businesses across the country are owned by someone over the age of 55. And so we are seeing this massive transition of business ownership. We know that at least 1 in 3 business owners will not find a buyer for their business. I think every business owner, when it comes to the end of their time, their chapter, they expect that someone else will just want their business or take the helm. But it's less and less likely that a second generation, like a kid, wants the business. And then also, again, like I said, if they do sell to a third party, it's most likely that they'll move the business and the jobs out of the community. So more, 50% of our businesses are owned by a baby boomer, likely to sell in the next 5 to 10 years. We're probably in year 5 or 6 of this. And so really this is happening now. In Texas, 53% of our businesses are owned by a baby boomer. And that's about true for just about all of y'all. Nevada, you can see it's a little different, but you can find this information on the EOXnetwork.org website, and you can see what it's like for your state. So I have a few state examples. Obviously, Texas is ginormous, but we have it down to the counties. So you can really kind of identify your local um, impact, I guess. I know some of y'all work at the county level or the city level, or maybe you have a regional workforce coalition. And so we have some data that I can share with you, or your local state center can share with you to really understand what's happening in your specific area. In Texas, it our sort of North Texas region and our Central Texas region, our Houston region, really are pretty heavily populated with baby boomer businesses, but that makes sense for the Metroplex areas. In Michigan, again, it's half. You can see it's about 81,000 businesses. In this wheel, these colors on our website or on the Michigan Center website, they really reflect industry specific jobs. And so the different colors coordinate with manufacturing, construction, and really I'm just trying to paint a picture of like, what is this silver tsunami? Why should we be caring about it? Well, this reflects jobs at risk. So in Michigan, these businesses represent about 1 million employees, making up $41 billion in payroll. And so just even if half of those sell to a third party or out of state, or if they close because they have, they retire and close their doors, it's a lot of jobs that have the potential to leave our communities. And then one more example is Pennsylvania, a small state, compared to Texas, but 109,000 businesses. It's more than half. Again, it's 1 million employees. And so, this is billions of dollars in payroll and billions of dollars in revenue for our communities. I have been a part of local coalitions that are really seeking to improve the financial mobility of local families. They're seeking to improve the workforce, like upskilling and advancement opportunities, or maybe it's just to decrease poverty in their community. And so those might be some groups or committees that you're a part of. And I think this data will reflect similar issue areas that you're working on as well. And so, again, this is to really paint the picture of like what's happening across our states and across our country, but then also how it really interacts with economic mobility, with financial well-being, with workforce and upskilling development. There's a lot of parallels here. So this is really a generational opportunity. Just at the USA level, that's 32 million employees. I know here in Texas, we have 3 million employees alone whose jobs are at risk because their businesses are owned by a baby boomer. But I think even more than that, this is really reflective of the trillions of dollars in payroll. So for employee-owned businesses, we know that they generate long-term wealth for employees. We know it's a more stable job. It's a more satisfactory job. Employees, because they stay longer, are more likely to advance. They build retirement. The businesses themselves are more productive. They're more profitable. And so thinking about our Main Street communities, our downtown communities, our local owned businesses, those retail shops or those those food kitchens, the mom and pop, construction business that's in the second generation, manufacturers, print shops, like anyone potentially in a successful business could really benefit from some type of employee ownership to keep those doors open. So for us, employee ownership is a win-win-win-win-win. Specifically from the employee, the job perspective, employee owners earn 33% higher median wages, which is incredibly significant, particularly for those blue collar workforces, for those frontline services, things like healthcare, childcare, these jobs that we're so dependent on to make our communities go, and that really are good jobs, but are probably undervalued and underpaid, but really have an open door for folks who maybe don't have certain education attainment and all those sort of workforce characteristics. Um, Employee ownership is what makes those jobs really great. And so we know that there are healthcare companies that become employee owned, and then those employees stay a lot longer. They show a lot higher satisfaction. Job that we know is very taxing, but they're using. Employee owners also build 92% higher household net wealth. They accumulate more than double their retirement savings. So you can see the ripple effects beyond just the family. This really becomes not only a great workforce impact, but it has ripple effects into the community, the economics, the economy of the community at large. So a few companies you may recognize. All of these companies, and this is a small handful, public employee owned. King Arthur Baking Company, all your flour, from King Arthur, they're employee owned. There's a few banks on here. Publix, huge grocery store, and Brookshire Brothers, they're here in Texas. Burns and McDonnell and HDR, big engineering professional services firms. You see, there's a home care association. So really, here I'm just trying to show you that maybe folks that you didn't realize are employee owned, that you are a customer of theirs, they are employee owned, and also to give you an idea of what types of companies. So really, there's a spectrum of industry, a spectrum of size, obviously a spectrum of location. Some are more rural or some are more metropolitan. But then these also represent a spectrum of employee ownership type. So I'll get into it, and specifically, I'll try to activate your imagination of which businesses in your community right now might be a good fit. But just know that here, these are all different types of employee ownership. So the idea being that most every company can find some way to incorporate employee ownership into their business to make it a stronger business, better jobs, and more wealth building opportunities. Okay, so there are three main buckets. And I'm going to give you the 30,000-foot view. But think in your mind, and I'll try to give you ideas of businesses or maybe industries in your area, your state, or your county, or community that may be a good fit, because that's one way to start identifying how employee ownership makes sense, directly in your role and in your job. Again, I'm sure you all are working within a strategy or a vision for your local community groups or your county vision plan or your state efforts for workforce. And so trying to see where maybe some of these ideas could fit into specific industries that you're focused on might be helpful. So the ESOP is the most well-known. It's the most familiar. A lot of the employee companies in the country are ESOPs. California, Texas, Ohio have the most ESOPs in the country. Really, it's a retirement plan. And so if you know of anyone who works at an employee-owned company and it's an ESOP, they have probably been there a long time. These employees accumulate wealth over time through a retirement savings plan. And it generates incredible wealth building. It has significant tax benefits. Employees don't buy into it. And it's really great for those mid-sized to large companies. So we like to say like at least 20, 25 employees. Probably things like construction, manufacturing, major grocery stores, folks with a lot of employees and a lot of revenue. An ESOP does cost money to implement, and you don't quite need to know the details. I'm happy to talk more, but just know it's really a very successful company that has a lot of employees, um, and in industries that are very those necessary industries, the construction, the manufacturing, professional services like engineering and architecture. So those might give you some ideas. The second one is a worker cooperative. Now, this kind of goes on the other end of the spectrum. This is a great fit for tight knit industries and businesses. So think retail, think like a cooperative food kitchen where multiple food truck businesses are working together on this one kitchen. Um, think about tax firms and bookkeepers and accountants, small IT groups, maybe marketing and communications, graphic design firms, folks who've worked together a long time, pretty intimate setting. But the other key characteristic of a worker cooperative is sharing in the leadership. So in a worker cooperative, every member of the cooperative buys into the business and gets a vote in the business leadership. And so it's a really great fit for those intimate settings where it's really important to have voice and participation and leadership among the whole group. We have an accounting firm here in Austin, or it's a bookkeeping and accounting firm. And she said, I wanted to become a cooperative because I didn't want to have to shoulder the weight of all these ownership decisions and business decisions and operations when I really like wanted to be working, client facing. And so that was a really key driver. And so thinking about mental health services, consultant groups, I think of a lot of people who are working at home, but there's like 5 or 6 employees and they're looking for a way to sort of strengthen and grow their business. So very democratic governance, low setup, kind of a unique type of group that's a good fit for this. We see a lot of worker cooperatives in the Northeast area, but all across the country. And then again, healthcare and childcare, home healthcare. There's several of those across the country that are worker cooperatives. And then childcare is a really interesting opportunity. There are a few childcare cooperatives around the country. I think North Carolina has a really strong one. There's one kind of in Austin. It has a huge potential to really impact childcare, which I am sure is a parallel issue area for those working in workforce. They go hand in hand. Okay, and then the final one is the employee ownership trust. Now, this is sort of Goldilocks. So if you're thinking about companies that, yeah, they could be any of those industries and they kind of are all any of those sizes. There's some that are big, some that are small, but really, they care a lot about their employees. These folks have been around for 30, 40 years. They don't want to see them close. It's just a good place to work. An employee ownership trust might be a good option. It's very flexible. It's very nimble. It's newer. We only have 3 here in Texas. I think Massachusetts just got their first one. And so, this is real flexible. And so again, just as you're thinking about the way that employee ownership might impact the good jobs and the necessary industries in your communities, hopefully you're seeing that there's probably a good fit among any of these for those businesses. And again, there's several other types of models, but everything I just did is what I do with business owners all day. And so connecting business owners with your state center is a great way to get one-on-one support and resources that are customized to those businesses. So if you haven't picked up on why employee ownership, here's some more ways to convince you, hopefully. Employee-owned companies really are stronger companies. They're more profitable, 6 times more profitable, 6 times more productive. We also know that local owned companies generate 3 times more dollars into their local community. And so, if your role in some of your community strategy is really about how do we develop good paying jobs in your community, employee ownership could be a great strategy. If your role is really about how do we keep our downtown businesses alive, employee ownership could be a good strategy. Employees build more wealth, increases local spending, but it really benefits the selling owner too. And so it's not something to overlook that this is an incredible retirement income option for the selling owner. And so, you may be working with business owners who are looking for that exit strategy. They're looking for that succession plan. Maybe they've got great employees and you know that there's such a good company in your community. It could be a great option so that they're able to keep their doors open and get paid out. Here's a few other, down here in these bubbles are some other benefits, but really we see this as an incredible uh, win for so many issue areas, and down in the local community, but all the way out broadly across the country. I'll say that employee owners, they are more engaged in their jobs because they are owners. They work with an owner mindset. They don't clock in and clock out. Because the strength of the company and the prosperity of the company is really dependent on the owners acting and thinking like owners. Uh, the company pours into the employee owners. They educate the employee owners. Um, I just saw the chat, and yes, worker cooperatives are definitely becoming more and more interesting or popular across the country. Coffee shops, cannabis shops, yes, plant amazing. And yeah, Madison too, yes. So really, in your different states, you'll have a different vibe or economy flavor, and so you may see more of one model than the other, but we see that too, that worker coppers are becoming very popular, and it's because of all these benefits to the employee specifically. So they're more engaged, they report higher satisfaction in their job, they stay longer, so they advance further, and they also build that wealth. Now I should say there are kind of not asterisks, but the wealth building looks different depending on the model of employee ownership. But generally, overall, broadly, employees do build more wealth because they're sharing in the rewards of the company. We like to say that employee owners share both the responsibility and the rewards of the company. And so these benefits are just really, um, they just permeate every facet of the business, which we know that local businesses are the lifeblood of our local economies, and for many reasons. Okay, so this is the network that I mentioned that state centers are part of. We have 25 state centers, but everything I've done today, where I've talked about how I would interact with a business owner, I'm offering this education and these free resources and support to you all. This is what your state center does. Every state has a different sort of opportunity for employee ownership. Some states like Colorado, Massachusetts, and Michigan offer financing and capital and technical assistance at the state level for employee ownership transactions. Some states like Texas, we're kind of newer and we're brewing things up, but all of us who have a state center have free resources and support to support you all and owners directly. We also educate professional advisors. So for those of you who either work alongside business consultants, or CPAs or attorneys, or the economic developers in your community, the city managers and city planners. We work with municipalities to educate them, banks, CDFIs. These are all important pieces to bring together to connect the ecosystem so that owners and cities realize that employee ownership is an option to keep their businesses open, to keep the jobs in the community, and to keep circulating dollars. You don't just have to sell or close. So this is really the role that state centers play. We are advocates spreading awareness and supporting those who work with business owners and employees. We also have an incredible network of advisors. And so something for you to think about for your own role or for a business you may interact with. We know advisors all across the country. And so there's a trusted group, a trusted network of folks who are prepared and understanding of employee ownership transactions and can really properly guide folks through the right next steps for them. We also have trainings, I'll mention, North Carolina, Minnesota, I believe Michigan. I know we are going to be offering ambassador programs, virtual programs to really offer folks such as you and other community leaders the real information they need to spread employee ownership opportunity across their community. but we also have accredited trainings for CPAs. And so if folks are coming to the library looking for continuing education opportunities, we offer that as well. Again, we have presentations and webinars. We love to talk with chambers, with city councils, with local coalitions that are working on economic mobility or financial well-being, or higher paying jobs. Think about how we can support your efforts to really build the knowledge in your area. And of course, at the national level, we have lots of research, lots of data. You saw the maps in the beginning. Happy to figure out how we can get the statistics and the data points you need to really expand your work. So as of today, these are the 25 state centers. North Dakota is our newest one. So if there are folks in your group in North Dakota, we got it. But you can see Washington and, I think Nevada, not yet. I think I saw Rhode Island. Rhode Island, not yet. However, there's been such an incredible presence in the east, on the East Coast and the Northeast. Our national network can help you. And so if you don't see your state represented, please don't hesitate to engage and connect. I know in Texas, I often help people in Oklahoma and Louisiana, but I also am able to refer folks out if Texas doesn't have a specific resource. So technical support and connections are things that we definitely provide. And then, like I mentioned, there are some states, Colorado and Massachusetts have a office of employee ownership in the governor's office, and so they would be a great resource. They have a lot of technical assistance and support for businesses and their employees. Let's see, Washington and California are really growing their resource toolbox, if you will. And some other folks, let's see, Michigan, the Department of Labor will pay for feasibility studies for employee ownership. And so connecting with the Michigan Center for Employee Ownership would be a great way to directly support a business getting some financing. Let's see, North Carolina, really robust employee ownership scene and employee ownership center. Tennessee is really growing. Tennessee and West Virginia have gotten some local foundation funding. Missouri as well. So the local philanthropic groups are really starting to pour into this for different reasons, whether it's business legacy or it's wealth building or it's preserving good jobs. And so you may even engage this in your local philanthropic scene. But again, happy to reach out or happy to connect with you directly, or of course you can reach out to any of your centers. So this is our guy, Steve. He's our director at the national level. He is traveling all the time. But if you scan this QR code, that goes to our webpage on our national website that you can kind of click and directly connect with your state center. But any of us across the country are happy to refer you. I think that's the real strength of our network, is that if you have a question, we can find an answer or the right person. And then last slide here is just me and my contact information. But also a little note that a lot of us, but definitely our website, we have this free resource. So it's a business succession planning guide. I know that's a little maybe to the side of workforce specific and employee, but the business we know that I think it's sometimes 80% is the statistic I see that most business owners don't have a succession plan. And so for those businesses in your community that have 15 employees, 8 employees, 40 employees, it's good to know if that owner has a succession plan for what's next, especially if they are over the age of 55. So this is just a free resource. You can print these out or just have a PDF on your website or something, and as a library resource. And we have a few others that are coming out, like there's trainings and others as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see all of you, and if you have questions. But yes, that's the information. Okay. Yeah, so happy to answer your questions. Okay, is EOX a national mentor network like SCORE? Great question. So no, and we partner with folks like SCORE. So I actually have a presentation with SCORE in a few months. So I will be presenting to their clients on what is employee ownership. We also, it depends in different states, but a lot of us have really strong relationships with the SBDCs, the Small Business Development Centers. I think the acronym might be different in some states. And so we really see ourselves as a resource and a tool to amplify and support all the folks who work with business owners, like SCORE, like SBDCs, like banks. I get banks reach out to me a lot, wealth advisors, financial advisors saying they're looking for something. So any of those kinds of groups, business consultants, wealth advisor firms are definitely folks that we collaborate with. I think that's the chat questions. David, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Very informative. I see you've made inroads into the South. How do you convince those in leadership that this isn't a ploy to get people to form
Mm,
unions, which I'm pro-union. I think
mhm,
right to
mhm.
work is nonsense, but how do you get those? Because those that represent us don't always mean they're the smartest ones representing us. So I was just curious how you convince them that that's not what this is and more about saving for the future, employee security and like the things you were talking about.
Mhm. Great question. We don't see it as zero sum or either or, but it depending in North Carolina, I think in New Jersey, there's a lot of questions about unions. Here in Texas, there are unions, but just a different conversation. Um, we we really I think it's in like the messaging and the framing that this is really in employee benefits. This is in building stronger businesses, which is similar but different from maybe lobbying as a entity of workers. There are ways where a union and like a worker cooperative can coexist. We have a institution here in Austin. Well, they can't say anything yet, but they have a union, and they're also interested in becoming a worker cooperative. Those can coexist, and so we really don't see it as zero sum. When we talk with like legislators or policymakers or city officials, that can be a really nuanced conversation that takes maybe a few different touch points. We find that speaking with business owners who are employee owned can be it can really illuminate and enlighten that employee ownership is different than union, although there may be similar um, goals or benefits. We really advocate for broad-based employee ownership, and the distinction there is that broad-based means that most or all employees have the opportunity to be an owner, both financially and in decision making. So that's a little different than a union where you're a member and you act as one body. So it is a nuanced conversation, but we find with just the right framing and a lot of knowledge building uh, that there's not too much um, confusion around that. But it's a great question and great topic. And I think in North Carolina, y'all have right. You're in North Carolina. There is a group called the Industrial Commons. You may even be familiar, an incredible textile co-op of industries. They've done a lot of work on educating really what kind of is the difference and maybe benefits to either. And so anyway, just to kind of wrap that up, I think we don't see it as zero sum. They can be complementary and coexist, I guess. But we're advocating for broad-based employership, which is a distinction from the union.
Thank
Did
you
that
so
answer your
much.
question? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. What else? Happy to try to answer specific to y'all states as well, at least what I know of, or give brainstorm ideas for how employee ownership and workforce can kind of meet. Yeah, Mark.
So I'm just curious to know, as far as like the information needs for folks who are like co-op curious or other formation, um, what uh what should we be looking for like as libraries, as resource folks? What is helpful? Like, are there areas? Because I don't have a business background, but I
Hmm
do know
hmm
how to search for things.
hmm
So just kind of curious where to start.
Yeah. So you're thinking like, how do I kind of identify like what
Mm-hmm.
maybe where yeah, how do I see this? Great question. I think two things right away. One, I think about businesses in your area that either have an aging owner or are a really important business. Um, I live out kind of in the country, and there's a construction company that's like the biggest employer in our community. So that would be my first indicator. Man, I hope what's going to happen to them. So even just for myself, I'm just curious about those important businesses, those important industries, and kind of who owns them or what's next. So that's kind of my first thought, especially if you think about if you'll work, closely with your downtown revitalization groups or your small business owner meetings or committees or something. Those might be good places to really identify who are the aging owners, but that's the low hanging fruit. Any business can become employee ownership, employee owned. The low hanging fruit are those baby boomers that we're really trying to make sure and keep the doors open. Um, I think so. So important industries are important companies that are important to your area. I think if you're thinking about like a type of employee ownership, so like a worker cooperative, who might be a good worker cooperative? I immediately think of those smaller niche businesses that are what is the word I'm looking for? But those like necessary services. So healthcare, home healthcare, that might be a locally owned home healthcare agency, a locally owned childcare group, or a few childcare centers that maybe have one director. And maybe there's a thing there. I think about the food kitchens that have a
Mhm.
lot of the place you might find some of those, or if you interact with like business incubator groups or your small business development
Mhm.
centers. I meet people. I met someone at a bank networking event the other day that was just a community networking event, and she owns a accounting firm. And I was like, "Oh wow,
Mhm.
how long have you been doing that?" She's like, "Well, I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years." Great. Do you have
Mhm.
employees? Oh yeah, we've got 4 employees. That's a perfect opportunity. Wow, have you thought about um, selling many of it to your employees, or have you thought about what's next? And she's like, I'm not ready to retire, but I might kind of want to do something different. So any of those kinds of like ideas, I think also good sources, at least that from my perspective that I find, are those chamber events, the Rotary clubs, the
Mhm.
networking, the young professionals group. Uh, and y'all have such a good pulse on sort of the like community network, the fabric. And that's where I would just use um, maybe a different lens, seeing, okay, well, what are the businesses in this community fabric, or what are the jobs that are dependent on this? I was living and working in Waco, Texas, and a huge group there is Goodwill. And they do outstanding workforce development training in Waco. And I knew the person who was doing that, but we knew each other because we were on this like Prosper Waco coalition that was all about revitalizing the city before HGTV got there. But and I just happened to know about her, and so I just think about those types of connections. I know the person who's doing that training. I wonder if they're familiar with other businesses. So that's kind of how I would think about it, important businesses and
Mhm.
industries, and then maybe types of
Mhm.
groups. And then one more idea is thinking about maybe the angle. So if you are working specifically with your workforce development groups and you're thinking a lot about like how do we improve quality of jobs or the number of jobs, then going through that angle and like which companies are already offering those apprenticeships, which companies are already offering those sort of segue careers for the people coming out of high school or the people who get out of trade school. Those may be great companies to engage and ask what their sort of succession plan is, because then that would provide a longer pipeline or a deeper pipeline for good jobs. Did that answer your question or give some ideas at least?
Yeah, that certainly helps. I like the idea of getting sort of just getting an idea of the landscape out there for firms and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of figuring out like what are we looking at as far
Mm-hmm.
as our own version of the silver tsunami as well.
Totally. And we do have a Wisconsin office
Mm-hmm.
at our state center. And so I would also encourage just reaching out directly to them because they may have some real specific ideas about what they're doing boots on the ground. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy to facilitate. I can connect you over email if you'd like, or you can reach out directly. But yeah, we have a Wisconsin center. So that would be another suggestion would be to reach out to them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I see. Oh, Joyce loves. Oh, Washington. I would connect you to Patricia. She is the director of the Washington Center. Sounds like there might be some policy coming. which could be really great to incentivize. Yes, they are housed in the Whatcom Foundation. I'm not too familiar with the ins and outs, but that's a real strength, I think, is to that they're paired with a philanthropic organization that pours into the community. So yes, another even way to think about, if there's big philanthropic groups in your community that care about jobs, do they know about employee ownership? So yeah, Washington has some big things ahead, which we're really excited about, and they have a great website too. Um, couldn't tell you what it is right now, but but I know you can find it, or please reach out to me. I'm happy to direct you or connect you with Patricia. Um, and then Emily, what do you see as the needs and opportunities for sort of upskilling individuals who want to step up into business ownership in this way? Well, others can support and develop. Yes. First of all, I'll say there is a statistic out there that says employee owners are more likely to become entrepreneurs themselves. And so we see that employee-owned companies that really engage and educate their employees on financial literacy, business literacy, what is it like to own a business? Those employee owners are the ones who are most likely to start their own thing. Yes, New Jersey's at Rutgers. I'm answering multiple questions because you make me excited. All my wheels are turning. But yes, so I think the needs for upskilling employees is it kind of we see this as a huge long funnel. And if we start at just trying to make employees understand employee ownership, but the business owner and decision makers don't understand employee ownership, we don't get anywhere. But we also find that if we just focus on the business owners and teach them about employee ownership, and then they become employee owned, but they don't engage the employees, you don't see the benefits. So the sweet spot for us is really those businesses that are curious of employee ownership, and then offering them or connecting them with those employee engagement opportunities. And a lot of the ways that I do that is I connect those businesses with other companies that are doing it really well. And so we find that that's like really effective because they can talk shop and they have tools and resources that this manufacturing company can offer that manufacturing company. I just learned about at our healthcare company down here in San Marcos. They went and visited our same model tech company up in Frisco. It's like, why would you do that? They said, because we really wanted to understand the culture. And so we offered our employees the opportunity to go learn about the culture of this company so then they could bring it back. It was like this leadership opportunity. So I know this is a little bit of a roundabout answer, but I know that employee owners they have more opportunities for advancement. And so I see it as almost like a larger systemic opportunity for upskilling. I also think there's some education around what makes a good job and educating employees, especially our younger employees. Why does retirement benefit? Why is it good for you and your family when you may not have kids and you're 19 years old and you're a welder? Talk to employees about we hear this a lot. The salary you see, you may be getting paid by the hour. So if you make $20 an hour, but over there you see $22 an hour, like maybe you don't want to leave your job for that $22 an hour because the job you have has these types of benefits or these types of opportunities or these types of apprenticeship mentorship programs. So a lot of education around that can really go a long way at explaining the full package of what makes a good job. And we see that mostly in those jobs that are like frontline services or field workers. And then, of course, our centers are really happy to explain why an employee-owned company makes the best type of job. And so we do find that employee-owned companies, they have a competitive advantage. We hear all the time, healthcare, tech, a pool company, that they are able to cherry pick employees from other companies because once they're employee-owned, it's just such a good job. And so I think that real education around what makes a good job is important. I hope that answered your question. I might have gone on a tangent, Emily. Did that help?
I'll just go
Okay.
off mute.
Yeah.
Sort of, but I guess I'm thinking about I'm thinking a little bit more about when the businesses are selling. So if an employee or if a business owner doesn't choose before they sell their business to invest in this way to make it employee owned before they leave, and these sort of
Mm-hmm.
come online, and people are looking at maybe buying those businesses or maybe creating a cooperative to collectively buy this business.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my sense of talking to some people is there's maybe a knowledge gap, but there's also this like maybe an insecurity of like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And so like what are the things that those
Mm-hmm.
people need that you see that would help them feel more confident to step into that kind of a role to ensure that these businesses are being sold, they're sort of ending up in the end as employee owned, even if they're not being sold specifically that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yes, great question. A path to employership is definitely your acquisition. For co-op specifically, so when you mentioned maybe they want to form a co-op and purchase the business, that is probably the most likely path where this scenario would play out. The others, it's really it's an internal sale. There's negotiations. There's evaluation. It's a very structured legal, you know, process. Where the co-op, that is a likely scenario where a group of folks would come together. There are great co-ops learning and knowledge building resources. The Democracy at Work Initiative, DAWI, that's a great resource. They actually have a like online course for teaching folks whether they're about to be a co-op, they want to be a co-op, or they are a co-op, teaching them how to be a co-op. Because you become like a decision maker and a leader and an owner in there, and you have a vote. And so really active or equipping those folks with what ownership is. Some of our think best resources for like business literacy really comes from SCORE and small business development centers. And really even like Rutgers, they have some online courses for business development. And so that's where I would lean on business and literacy. Those are those great resources to support owners in that specific way. There are also smaller groups. I'm trying to think. I want to say it's in Massachusetts. Start.coop, Coop. Start.coop is like a kind of a co-op incubator. So we're seeing a growing number of not just business incubators, but business incubators specific to worker cooperatives. There are different types of employee ownership. So like maybe it's a management buyout, but that's where I would engage your state center. But if you know of folks who kind of want to build up their business literacy skills, those would be the two ways I would do it. I would educate specifically on worker cooperatives, or I would recommend business literacy through a small business development center or SCORE. Yes. And then this is not an exhaustive list, but the Federation of Worker Cooperatives, they have a great list. You can see all the co-ops in your state. It's not exhaustive because they have to self-report. But another way may be to engage a local cooperative. We do have worker cooperative developers, I think in every state. I know in Texas we have one. And they also offer coaching services. So there are specific groups dedicated to starting up, helping, coaching, and supporting worker cooperatives specifically. So connecting with your state center can really get you connected to those local cooperative developers. The other forms of employee ownership, there are like consultants and coaches that definitely can support your employee owners, and then folks like us who can support employees with engagement and education, which can be a real initial step to building up that business literacy down the road. Okay, great. And then I see Danielle, and I know we're coming to time. Let's see. I spoke with an employee-owned company here in Baltimore, and they directed me to the organization that supports co-ops in the area called Pride Baltimore. Wow, I haven't heard of it, but that kind of sounds like what start.coop is. Or worker cooperatives, but I am learning more every day about organizations, and that's where the uniqueness of each state or state center is going to offer that unique network. And so again, I would just point back to the state center connection. If you don't have a state center, we can definitely connect with you at the EOX national level. And then Rutgers is that's one of our sources of information is Rutgers. They do so much research, so because of their proximity, they may be a great resource for you as well. Okay, Andrea, I think I answered every question, but again, I'm happy to follow up and share lots of resources and connect people directly. But I think I answered all of them.
This is excellent. Thank you so much, Taylor. I
Yes.
think I think I speak for the group that we learned a lot, and I think that we're motivated to get in touch with our local centers and to learn more.
Awesome.
And as I mentioned before, I have the slides, so I'll be sending them out in the follow-up along with the recording. So please share this with anyone who may have missed today that you think would benefit from this training. And our next meeting will be on May 19th, and our speaker will be Amanda Sweet, who will be talking about Tech Ready Nation. Again, this is rescheduled from when she was previously supposed to speak, but was unable to join us. So I hope you will register for that. And I think I have the link here. You may already be registered for all the Libswork sessions coming up, but just in case. So I think we'll end it there. And thank you again to Taylor, and thank you all for joining today. And I will see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Y'all too. Thank you so much, Andrea.